I always thought betrayal would come like a thunderclap, sudden, violent, impossible to mistake. But when it finally came, it arrived on tiptoe, under dim bar lights and the soft hum of an early winter drizzle. New Year's Eve was supposed to be something different that year. That's how Claire sold it. "Let's not do the usual forced dinner," she'd said a week before. "Just the two of us, no family, no pressure, no dried-out roast." She even called it a gift to ourselves, something spontaneous and fun before the next 12 months of real life settled in. At the time, I agreed. I wanted to believe we needed the change. We'd been married 8 years, and if I'm being honest, we'd been orbiting each other for the last 12 months like strangers in the same museum. Polite, observant, but distant. I chalked it up to work, to stress, to routine. What I didn't know then was that Claire had already found her own way out of that routine. She left before me that night, said she wanted to get a feel for the place, and grab us a booth before the crowd rush. I didn't think much of it. I had a work call that ran long, a client who couldn't read a calendar, and I texted her I'd meet her there in 30. No response. Not like her, but I figured the bar was loud. By the time I pulled into the parking lot off 6th Street, the rain had started to mist over the windshield. Nothing dramatic, just that steady drizzle that paints everything in Austin a little grayer than it really is. I couldn't see through the crowd near the front door, so I walked around the back alley toward the service entrance, thinking I might find a quieter way in. Not out of suspicion, at least not consciously. But I've wondered since if some part of me knew. If my legs took me the long way around because my heart needed the truth to slap me in the face. And that's exactly what it did. There, under the yellow glow of the exit sign, Claire walked out with Miles. I'd seen him before. Tall, clean-shaven, always smiling a little too long at the punchlines in her work stories. The kind of guy who plays harmless a little too perfectly. She'd mentioned him in passing. "Oh, Miles said that new design was a mess." Or "Miles thinks the meeting could have been an email." Always just "Miles said." Never "I had lunch with Miles" or "Miles and I are going out after work." But that night, there was no room for doubt. They stepped out like a couple who had done this before. Comfortable, synchronized, a little buzzed but not careless. Claire's hair was down when she left the house, but now it was half pulled up in that casual, rushed way she does when she's been distracted. Her lipstick was smeared, barely, and her earrings were mismatched. She never mismatches her earrings. That's how I knew. Behind them, a waiter followed with a tray of 2 empty glasses, his hand trembling slightly in the cold. The tray angled just enough for me to see the wet imprints where their drinks had been. One glass still had Claire's favorite lipstick mark, half faded. They didn't see me. Miles was talking close to her ear, and she was laughing too loud, that bright laugh she used to save for me when she was trying to pull me out of a bad day. Cut right through me. I didn't take a picture. I didn't walk up to them. I just watched. I followed with my eyes as they walked across the slick pavement toward the boutique hotel next door, the kind with polished floors and a front desk that never asks too many questions. Miles pulled something from his coat pocket and tapped it against the card reader. The terminal blinked green. Claire touched his arm when the concierge handed him the keycard. They disappeared into the elevator, laughing at something only they shared. 2 minutes later, a light came on in one of the corner suites on the 3rd floor. Curtains closed a moment after. I stood there for a long time. I don't know how long. I remember the sound of the service door swinging shut behind them and the soft beeping of the card terminal resetting for the next guest. Somewhere nearby, a woman shouted Happy New Year too early. A bottle shattered against the curb. People were celebrating the start of something. I felt something end. When I finally walked away, I didn't head into the bar. I took the long route back to my car, not because I was afraid of what I'd find if I went inside, but because I already knew. The rain soaked through my jacket, and I didn't care. I walked for a while down by the river trail, just trying to understand what had happened. And when I got home sometime after 2 a.m., Claire was already there, freshly showered, wrapped in one of her oversized cardigans, the kind she only wore when she wanted to look casual and innocent. There was no apology, no shock at the late hour, just a forced smile and a "Hey, you okay?" You never showed. I stared at her. She stared back. For a split second, something flickered in her eyes. Guilt? Or just calculation? She sat on the couch, legs tucked under her like nothing had happened, and launched into her prepared story. "We ran into some clients," she said. "Work stuff. I didn't even get to order my drink before it turned into a pitch session. It was so boring." She paused for effect, as if to say, "Don't worry, you didn't miss anything." Her phone buzzed twice on the table. She flipped it over quickly. The next morning, her Instagram stories showed clips from a supposed girls' night. Laughing faces I didn't recognize, clinking glasses, the usual filtered **TS of sparkles and fake smiles. Not once did Miles appear, not even in the background. Every frame was curated like it was designed by someone who knew exactly how to erase the truth. In our shared Google Calendar, she added a vague, networking drinks, entry retroactively. Timestamped 15 minutes before they walked out of that bar. The attention to detail was surgical. Even her texts were longer than usual, explaining too much, using words she never used in speech. "I'm sorry the night went sideways, babe. I didn't mean for it to feel like I ditched you. I was just pulled into work stuff unexpectedly. I missed you." She added a red heart emoji. I didn't reply. I didn't need to fight. The receipts were already in place. The bar, the exit door, the boutique hotel, the lights flickering on in the third-floor window. The lipstick stain on the rim of her glass, the card transaction on our joint account. A boutique suite billed to both of us like some twisted inside joke. She thought she'd managed to scrub the night clean. But I saw everything I needed to see. And once you see the truth, it doesn't go back into the box. No matter how well someone folds the story. You don't notice the cracks when you're still trying to believe the house is whole. But once the first wall caves in, everything starts to shift. Memories, gestures, conversations you thought were harmless. It all rushes back in a different light. Nothing looks the same once the illusion's gone. After New Year's, I couldn't stop replaying it. The bar, the tray of glasses, the boutique hotel, the way Claire looked through me the next morning like nothing happened. And the worst part? She was so convincing. Not frantic, not defensive, just controlled, measured, almost rehearsed. Like she'd anticipated this moment and practiced her lines. That's when the doubts started slipping through the cracks like water. I didn't accuse her. I didn't raise my voice. I just started watching. It began with the passwords. Claire had always used the same 3. Our dog's name, her old college, her favorite band. She wasn't the type to care much about digital security, until she suddenly was. One morning, the password to our shared streaming account stopped working. Then it was her photo vault, her iCloud. She brushed it off with a laugh. I read an article on data leaks. Paranoid now. She said it casually while making coffee, like it was no big deal. Then came the 2-factor codes. Every few days her phone would buzz with 6 digits from nowhere, and she'd lock the screen with a sharp flick. When I asked, she shrugged. "Work login," she said. "They're making us update everything. But I work in IT. There was no rollout, no update." Next came the yoga retreats. Claire had never been into yoga. She did bar once and complained for a week about her calves. But suddenly she was disappearing on weekends, bag packed, saying she was driving 2 hours out for a wellness retreat. "I just need to disconnect," she said. "It's been a crazy quarter." When she came back, she smelled different, new lotion, new cologne, a different kind of tired. Not the kind that comes from meditation. I asked to come along once, just to clear my head too. She smiled like it was cute and said, "You'd be so bored. It's all silence and raw food." What got me wasn't just the lies. It was how smooth she'd gotten at telling them. A few weeks later, I noticed something on her scarf. It was subtle, but unmistakable. The scent of someone else's cologne. Not mine. Not hers. A sharp, citrusy note I would have ignored if it hadn't clung to her coat 2 days later. She said she must have brushed against someone in the elevator. I stopped responding. Just nodded. Let her fill the silence with excuses. Then there were the conferences. She had 3 in the span of 2 months, Chicago, Atlanta, and 1 supposedly local in Round Rock. The odd part? None of them showed up in the company's internal bulletin. And when I checked the official websites, she wasn't listed as a speaker or attendee. Not even a ghost name. I tried to dismiss it. Maybe she registered late or they hadn't updated. But she never brought home badges or hotel receipts or even swag bags. And Claire loved conference swag. One night she said she was working late at the office. I drove by with takeout, just to surprise her. The building was dark. No cars in the lot. Her desk, visible from the parking structure, was empty. When I asked about it the next day, she claimed she was in a meeting room with poor reception. I didn't challenge it, but something in her voice twitched when she said it. Something brittle. The next day, I checked our bank statement. It wasn't the big charges that caught me. It was the small ones. Dozens of them. $18.99 to a catering service at 9:46 p.m. on a Tuesday. $37.50 to a florist in a zip code we'd never lived in. $12.74 to Artisan Coffee and Company at 7 a.m. on a Sunday during one of her retreats. All logged on our joint account. All tagged as business expense in the app. She'd never been sloppy before. Now she was either getting lazy or she didn't care if I noticed. Then I found the hidden folder on her phone. It wasn't password protected, just buried under folders named Receipts and Docs. Inside were selfies, mirror sh*ts taken in hotel rooms I didn't recognize. Claire in a robe, her hair wet. One photo had a timestamp from a night she told me she was at dinner with colleagues. Another had a handwritten, "Hi," smiley face, on the mirror, like it was for someone else. Someone watching later. I didn't confront her. I copied the files, backed them up, and closed the folder. The weight in my chest had turned to something harder. Something cold. Then came her laptop. Claire had left it open once. Rushed morning, coffee spilled, mid-Zoom call. I wasn't looking for anything. Not at first. I just tried to clean up the mess, dry the keyboard. But then I noticed something strange in the browser history. A login page I didn't recognize. Not her work portal. Not personal email. The address was tied to an encrypted cloud service I'd never heard of. I copied the link, ran a search. It was for a secure storage platform mostly used by journalists and contractors, people who needed to protect sensitive files. Not someone in marketing. Digging deeper, I found another account. This one under a variation of her name, first initial, middle name, birth year. It had a different email address, one not connected to anything I knew. But she'd logged in on this machine. Multiple times. Last accessed 2 nights ago. Right before one of her late conference calls. The worst part? There was no big reveal. No one smoking G*N. Just 1,000 pieces quietly pointing in the same direction. She was living a second life. And she thought she was getting away with it. I started keeping notes, dates, receipts, GPS pings, photos, calls. Not because I needed proof for court or revenge. I needed clarity. I needed to understand how deep this went, how long it had been going on, and how many times I'd looked the other way and called it love. Every lie became easier to spot after that. Like her voice changed just slightly. Like she was reading a part from a script she no longer enjoyed performing. Her eyes didn't meet mine in the morning. Her hugs felt lighter. Her texts shorter, like she was checking a box. I told myself I wouldn't lose it. That I'd wait until I knew for sure. Until the curtain fully lifted and I wasn't guessing anymore. That moment came sooner than I thought. But by the time it arrived, my heart had already done the math. And the answer had been there all along. Suspicion is a slow poison. It works its way into everything. How you read a text, how you smell a scarf, how you hear the pause before a lie. For weeks, I'd been walking around in that haze, collecting little pieces, watching Claire's double life take shape. But no matter how many signs stacked up, there was still a small voice in me. A stubborn, hopeful voice, whispering that maybe I was wrong, that maybe I was building a story out of shadows. That voice died at dawn on a Thursday in February. It happened by chance. My flight from Dallas was supposed to land at noon, but bad weather in Chicago delayed the incoming plane. We landed at 5:12 a.m. Instead, Claire didn't know. She thought she had until mid-morning before I came home. In hindsight, I think that tiny shift, a rescheduled flight, was what finally ripped the curtain away. The Uber dropped me off in front of our house at 5:37 a.m. The sky was still dark, a thin gray light just beginning to leak over the horizon. Our neighborhood was asleep. Even the streetlights seemed muted. I remember standing there for a moment with my suitcase, feeling like an intruder in my own life. Through the front window, I saw a glow from the bedroom lamp. Claire never left lights on. That was my first jolt of adrenaline. The second came when I noticed the garage door slightly ajar. Not open enough for a car, just enough to slip in and out quietly. I unlocked the front door as silently as I could and stepped inside. The house smelled different. Not like food or perfume, but like heat. Two bodies breathing the same air all night. The living room was strangely tidy, as if staged. A wine glass on the coffee table, half empty. My mug, rinsed and placed upside down in the sink. The bedroom door was ajar. That's when I saw it. On the chair by the window, draped neatly as if someone had just taken it off, was a man's jacket. Dark navy, expensive fabric. Not mine. The pockets bulged with a phone, a set of keys on a lanyard I didn't recognize. Next to it, on the floor, a pair of men's shoes. Polished leather, soles worn in a way that spoke of commutes and hotel lobbies. I stepped closer. My heart was hammering so hard I thought it might wake them. The bed creaked faintly. A shift. A murmur. Claire's voice, low, half asleep, speaking a name I couldn't quite hear. I should have stormed in. Should have shouted. Should have done something cinematic. Instead, I stood there, frozen, staring at the evidence like a detective at a crime scene. The bathroom door was half open. Two wet towels hung from the rack, side by side. Toothbrushes, two, lay on the counter, one mine, one a stranger's, still damp. A small travel-sized bottle of cologne stood upright by the sink. The same citrusy note I'd smelled on her scarf. And then, on the nightstand, the final punchline. Keycard. The same boutique hotel logo embossed in gold. The same place where I'd seen them disappear on New Year's Eve. Only this time, the keycard was here, in my house, on my furniture, next to my wife's phone. There was no ambiguity left. No room for her long texts, her rehearsed explanations, her curated stories. This wasn't a misplaced scarf or a suspicious receipt. This was physical presence. This was the scene itself. I backed away, careful not to make the floorboards creak. My hands were shaking so hard I had to grab the banister to steady myself. Every cell in my body screamed to throw the door open, to rip the covers off, to force her to look at me and admit it. But another voice, the one that had been growing colder and clearer since New Year's, told me to wait, to leave the trap untouched, to let the truth stand there naked, without me contaminating it with rage. I slipped out the front door and stood in the driveway, breathing in the cold morning air. My breath came out in clouds. My phone buzzed with a flight delay notification I didn't need anymore. For the first time in weeks, there was no doubt. No maybe. No what if. Just a fact so solid it felt like a brick in my chest. Claire wasn't just lying. She wasn't just flirting or dabbling. She had brought him here, into our space, into the bed we'd shared for 8 years. I sat in my car for a while, gripping the steering wheel, staring at the dark windshield. My reflection looked back at me, pale, hollow-eyed, a stranger. I thought of the timeline, new passwords, weekend retreats, conference trips with no registrations, hidden folders of hotel selfies, the second account, the encrypted drive. All of it had been building to this. I'd been collecting puzzle pieces for months, and now the last one had snapped into place. It was a picture of betrayal so complete it almost felt abstract, like looking at a painting instead of a memory. But it wasn't abstract. It was happening right now in my house behind my bedroom door. I drove. I don't remember where. Just circled the city as the sun came up, passing joggers and coffee shops and normal people living normal mornings. I felt like a ghost moving among them. The radio was on but silent to me. My phone buzzed once. A text from Claire. Hope your flight's okay. See you later, smiley face. I stared at it until it blurred, then put the phone face down. By the time I returned, the jacket was gone. The shoes too. The towels replaced by fresh ones. Claire was in the kitchen, hair damp, wearing one of my t-shirts like she always did on weekends. She smiled when she saw me, but it didn't reach her eyes. "Hey, you're early," she said, pretending to be surprised. "Flight must have landed ahead of schedule." I said nothing, just set my bag down and walked past her. She turned slightly, as if to block my path, but then stepped aside. The smell of citrus cologne lingered in the air. Upstairs, the bed was made. Pillows fluffed. Nightstand clear except for my alarm clock. Like it had all been a dream. But dreams don't leave keycards. I didn't confront her that day. Or the next. The trap was already closing. But it wasn't the kind you spring with shouting and broken plates. It was the quiet kind. The kind that lets someone walk themselves into their own corner. And standing there in the house that morning, I realized something terrifying. The anger I expected to feel wasn't there. Not fully. In its place was something colder. A kind of resolve. A plan forming in the back of my mind. A decision about what would come next. But first, I needed to watch her play her next move. To see how she'd spin this. How she'd try to rewrite the morning. I wanted to know exactly who she'd become before I showed her who I was now. You always imagine betrayal ending in chaos. Shouting matches, slammed doors, someone crying on the kitchen floor. But sometimes, it ends in absolute stillness. The kind of silence that feels more permanent than any scream. The morning after I caught them, or rather, the morning I confirmed what I already knew. I didn't say a word. I didn't slam the door or toss her phone into the garbage disposal. I didn't even flinch when Claire kissed me on the cheek and said, "You should rest. You look tired." She had no idea the lie had expired. That day was quiet. Deliberately so. She worked from the dining room, tapping at her laptop, bouncing between Slack and Zoom like nothing had changed. Meanwhile, I moved like a ghost through the house. I cooked breakfast, folded laundry, fed the dog. Each task felt surreal, like going through the motions of a life that no longer belonged to me. But even as I folded towels and clicked the dishwasher shut, I was working. Not in the physical sense, but with intention. A new clarity had settled into my bones. The type of clarity that comes after weeks of denial evaporate in a single instant. That afternoon, while Claire was on a call in the living room, I went into the study and opened my laptop. Not hers, mine. She didn't know I'd mirrored her cloud storage the day before. Didn't know I'd accessed her second account, the one tied to her alternate email and encrypted folder. She had locked it with two-factor authentication, but she'd used our anniversary as her fallback password. The same one she'd forgotten I set up security alerts for years ago. I compiled everything. Receipts, photos, location history, bank records. **TS of her hotel stays. The Uber drop-offs that lined up with the boutique's GPS. The catered meals billed to our joint account on nights she swore she was grinding out numbers at the office. I included timestamps, maps, her mirror selfies, and the calendar invites that somehow always disappeared a day after she returned. It was all there, a dossier built not with rage but with precision. Then I took off my wedding ring and placed it in a small box. Not dramatic. No message scrawled on a post-it note. Just the ring. And one short, typed note folded neatly beside it. I saw the jacket. I saw the towels. I saw the keycard. Check your cards. That was it. No accusation. No begging. No emotional labor on my end. Just facts. And a door quietly left open behind me. I slid the box into her work bag when she went to shower. Slipped it between her laptop sleeve and planner, the place she always checked first when she got to her co-working space downtown. That night, we went to bed like nothing had happened. She kissed me again. Soft, automatic, like muscle memory, and turned over without waiting for anything in return. In the morning, she left early. Said she had a client meeting and wanted to beat traffic. I nodded from the kitchen while making coffee I wouldn't drink. She didn't know I had already moved her out of the joint account. Locked my credit card. Froze the shared savings. Transferred my payroll to a new bank. I did it all in silence, no drama, No alerts sent to her inbox. I even replaced the password manager we shared with a dummy login. One that gave her access to fake data and nothing else. At 8:54 a.m., I received a single text from her. "Can you talk?" I didn't reply. At 9:10, a transaction failed. She tried to pay for parking with the joint credit card. Then another one, a coffee shop charge declined. By 9:20, I knew she'd found the ring and the note. She didn't text again. I picture the moment in my head, the way she probably froze with her hand halfway in her bag, pulling out a velvet box she didn't recognize. Then unfolding the note, reading the words, and realizing the floor had shifted beneath her. Maybe she excused herself to the bathroom. Maybe she sat down by the window and stared at the skyline, trying to look composed. It didn't matter. What mattered was that I finally saw her unravel. Not in front of me, but without me. No yelling, no defense, no staged performance, just silence. A glassy stare and the realization that I had stepped out of the script entirely. When she got home that evening, the house was dim. I left the porch light off. She walked in slowly, like someone entering a museum after closing, cautious, aware she didn't belong. Her keys clinked nervously against the counter. "Hey!" she called out, voice unsure. "You here?" I sat in the study, lights off, listening. She peeked around the corner. When she saw me, her face was blank. Not sad, not angry, just blank. Like she didn't know what role to play. "I found the note," she said quietly. I nodded. "I didn't expect—" She trailed off, then took a shaky breath. "Is this it?" I didn't respond, just looked at her like I was seeing her for the first time. She stepped closer, hands shaking slightly. "Can we talk about it?" Still, I said nothing. She started again, faster now, filling the silence. "It wasn't, look, I know it looks bad, but it's not." She stopped herself. "He's just someone I work with. I didn't plan." Her words collapsed under their own weight. I raised an eyebrow. "You went through my stuff?" she asked finally, trying to shift the ground. Still silence. "You froze my card? Mark, what are you doing?" It was the first time in a long time she said my name like it actually belonged to someone. I stood up slowly, walked past her, and left the room. "Mark," she said again, a little louder. "You can't just shut down. You're not even going to give me a chance to." The door closed behind me before she finished. Later that night, I heard her crying in the hallway. Soft, stifled sobs. I didn't get up. I didn't go to comfort her. I just stared at the ceiling fan spinning slowly, each blade a quiet tick of time moving forward, away from whatever this was. In the morning, she didn't mention the ring. She made eggs, left a cup of coffee by my spot at the table, and got dressed like it was any other day. The routine was eerie, like she thought she could perform her way back into normalcy. But the stage was gone. The audience had left. She was acting in an empty theater. She didn't ask about the money. She knew. She didn't offer an explanation. She knew I wouldn't listen. Instead, she said, "I'll be late tonight," and kissed my cheek before walking out the door. I let her go. Not because I was weak, but because the trap had already closed. Not a scandal. Not a confrontation. Just the slow, calculated collapse of a lie under its own weight. She had chosen her moment back in that hotel room. Now I was choosing mine. I used to think betrayal was the worst kind of truth, brutal, final, clean in its cruelty. But what came next made me long for the simplicity of cheating. Because once I started digging, I realized Claire's affair with Miles wasn't the whole picture. It was just the tip of something deeper. At first, I didn't intend to investigate anything further. I thought the chapter had closed. I'd left the ring, frozen the account, made my move. But then, one evening, about a week after the confrontation that never happened, I opened Claire's laptop again. Not out of habit. Out of instinct. She'd gotten sloppy. Or maybe she didn't care anymore. The encrypted cloud login had been cached in her browser. The same alternate email, the same login page from before. But now it was left signed in. That's when I saw it. A private workspace titled th/migration phase. No context. No explanation. Just a dashboard filled with files, shared with someone named Thomas Hale. Not Miles. Thomas Hale. I didn't recognize the name. He wasn't from her office Slack. I checked the participants list in her last Zoom invite, no Hale. But here he was, sharing an entire folder of confidential documents with her. Inside the workspace, spreadsheets, PDFs, and a long PowerPoint presentation with no company logo, just a header titled, Phase 3 Timeline, Decentralized Asset Transfer. It looked corporate but not quite legal. Phrases like offline movement, client backchannel, legacy node scrubbing. It didn't read like marketing. It read like someone was trying to move something or someone without being noticed. Mixed in were maps of multiple cities. Red dots marked across Los Angeles, Chicago, Asheville, and Denver. And then something else. A zip file labeled Denver Archive Final. PDF. I opened it. It was a photograph. Grainy, low-res, taken at night from what looked like across the street from a hotel. One of those glass towers near the Denver airport. A man stood near the entrance, glancing over his shoulder. The timestamp was 4 months ago. The next slide showed a spreadsheet of names. Dozens of entries, each with city codes, timestamps, and in some cases, short descriptions like link unstable or under review. Next to one name, Gregory Kent, was a red asterisk. I ran the name. News article. Denver, 4 months ago. Gregory Kent, 42, found dead in his hotel room. Cardiac arrest, the article said. Natural causes. No further investigation. The same hotel as the photo. The same week as the timestamp. And there, at the far right column of the spreadsheet, in Claire's own handwriting from a shared Google sheet, contacted by TH via courier, my blood ran cold. What was she involved in? What started as a messy, secret affair now looked more like cover. Like Claire had been hiding something bigger than infidelity. Something about information, movement, surveillance. Something that connected her to a man who ended up dead in a city she claimed she'd never been to. I sat back in my chair, staring at the screen. The lines were no longer just personal. This wasn't about Miles. It wasn't even about me anymore. It was about what Claire had built around her life. A kind of shell, a decoy to conceal whatever was going on underneath. I dug deeper. I traced the edits on the shared files. Most were by TH. Some were marked as anonymous user, but the IP logs, hidden in the back-end history, tied back to a VPN exit node in Asheville, North Carolina. Claire had no projects in Asheville. She'd never mentioned it once in 8 years. And yet, the name popped up again in one of her emails. A draft never sent, buried in her inbox. Asheville may be too risky. Might pivot to San Diego if pressure keeps building. M. Is unreliable. Don't trust what he says. I froze. M. Not Thomas Hale. Miles. Miles, the man I had assumed was the center of this entire thing, was just another thread. An unreliable one, according to Claire. A decoy. A distraction. And Claire? She wasn't just hiding an affair. She was hiding a network. Later that night, I went back to the restaurant where I'd first seen her with Miles, the one next to the boutique hotel. I remembered they had outdoor security cameras. I told the manager I was trying to retrieve footage from a night in December. Said I believed my wife had lost a bracelet and I hoped to identify when she dropped it. He was kind, maybe suspicious, but he let me into the back room. We scrolled through clips from New Year's Eve. I expected to see her laughing with Miles on the patio, flirting at the bar. And I did. But then, around 10:46 p.m., something else happened. She stepped away from Miles, moved to the back entrance, and stood there alone. Then Thomas Hale appeared. Tall, gray coat, no eye contact. She passed him a thin black folder, almost like a menu, while glancing over her shoulder. It was quick, efficient, not romantic, not personal, transactional. After that, she returned to the table with Miles, laughing again, sipping her drink like nothing had happened. I asked the manager if I could copy the clip. He said no. So I took a mental timestamp and wrote it down the moment I got to the car. Back at home, I stared at the name Gregory Kent again. Dead in Denver. And there, in one of the final file attachments, was a document titled Redundancy Protocol Stage 4. The footer included a name I didn't recognize, but the metadata, the buried fingerprint of the document, showed it was last modified by Claire on a Saturday when she said she was at the spa with coworkers. The paranoia set in hard that night. I checked her travel receipts, her flight history. I found a gap. A 2-day window with no card activity and no airline confirmation. But a rideshare receipt showed up in Denver. Picked up from the airport. Dropped at a Marriott. Same hotel Gregory Kent had died in. Same timestamp. No explanation. I don't remember sleeping that night. What I do remember is sitting on the floor of our bedroom. Every file printed out and laid before me like evidence on a corkboard. The affair had been real. But it wasn't just lust or emotional drift. It was camouflage. Miles, her smokescreen. Thomas Hale, the real connection. And whatever they were doing, tracking people, transferring data, making late-night rendezvous in Asheville, it was organized. Cold. And if I had stumbled this far by accident, I had to wonder. How much more was still buried? I didn't confront Claire. I didn't change my tone. I let her think I was wounded, distant, slowly coming to terms with her mistake. But I had moved past grief. Now I was looking for leverage. Now I wanted the whole truth. Claire said she was visiting a friend in San Diego, but her flight landed in Asheville. I followed discreetly, stayed in another hotel, tracked her through GPS and card activity. She wasn't with Miles, she met Thomas Hale. She moved like someone desperate to hide, not just from me, but from whatever she'd gotten involved in. It wasn't an affair anymore, it was damage control. And I wasn't the only person she feared. We crossed paths in a quiet bookstore. Claire looked drained, defeated. She handed me a folder, evidence of what she'd been part of, and said, "I'm done." I gave the file to people who could act on it, moved out, and started a separate life. We didn't fight. We didn't reconcile. Just silent messages and long runs alone. When she sent a photo from the Blue Ridge, I felt nothing. The marriage was gone. Only what mattered was left standing.